Believe it or not, we are 1/3 of the way through the 2024 NFL season. And in this video, we'll break down week 7 on the main slate for DraftKings and FanDuel as we prepare full cash lineups. And it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. Eric, let's get right into it. Both DraftKings and FanDuel, we have 4 players that we really like this week. I'm going to get right to it and get on with a guy that we both really like. He's a little bit expensive, especially on FanDuel. He's $7,600 on DraftKings and $9,100 on FanDuel. Quarterback position, Jaden Daniels playing against Carolina Panthers. Gosh, you got to love playing against that. One of the worst defenses in the league, including against quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels has been really a fantasy blessing for those of you guys who got him. We were all a little worried coming out of LSU whether he was going to make the transition. And one might argue that this is the front runner for Rookie of the Year. Not only airing the ball out, hasn't had a 300-yard game as of yet, but he gets in the end zone. He uses his legs. And he's gotten in the end zone on the ground. High fantasy production, and what better than starting against the Carolina Panthers? Where do you want to go from there, Eric?
Yeah, I'm going to get another stud in the lineup. It is wide receiver Drake London, $6,900 on DraftKings and $7,500 on FanDuel. You guys remember that we entered this season with Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles injury. It took him a game to get his feet right, but boy, has he come on. And who is his number one target? It's undoubtedly Drake London. In the last 4 games, London has been targeted an average of 11 times. In 3 of those 4 games, London has scored. So what's happening this week? They play an average defense in my Seattle Seahawks. Atlanta will be at home. They'll be in a dome. So you'd think with all this that he would be really high price. But the reality is there are 12 wide receivers that are more expensive on DraftKings and 13 more expensive on FanDuel. I'm glad to get London in our lineup at this price.
Yeah, no, it's 2 superstars. So let's save some money. Right now, I'm going to take advantage of what's going on in Buffalo. At least last we checked, James Cook is dealing with a toe injury, and that really benefited. If you watch this last game, Ray Davis, he is $5,200 on DraftKings, $5,400 on FanDuel, a nice little bargain going up against, basically the 31st defense in the league based on typical scoring. He had 97 yards rushing this last week, 55 through the air, really picked up nicely where Cook had been leaving off, and that was against a tough Jets defense. So now you're going up against Tennessee. Hey, I know you're probably worried. What about if Cook is playing? We got to have a couple of pivots on DraftKings. We like Madison taking advantage of Zamir White in not playing for the Raiders. And then on FanDuel, it's Goodson taking advantage of Jonathan Taylor being out, and it looks like Trey Sermon might be out as well. So those are potential pivots for you if for some reason Cook comes in and plays.
All right, so the 4th player of our core players is the New York Giants defense. Only $2,500 on DraftKings and $3,200 on FanDuel. They are dirt cheap, folks. And usually when you get a defense like that, you guys are thinking, oh, you're just punting. They're a terrible defense. No, they're not. In fact, they have a lot of the things we look for when we're looking for a fantasy defense. First of all, this week, they're at home, and they're a modest 3-point underdogs. But they're playing Philadelphia in one of the lowest scoring games on the main slate, only 43 total points. But here's the big reason. They put pressure on the quarterback. They have averaged 5 sacks. That's an average of 5 sacks over the last 5 games. You love that. I know Philadelphia has their 2 healthy wide receivers, but I still think for this price, it's a great defense. All right.
I like it.
So let's go to DraftKings and fill out the rest of our lineup, and then we'll hit FanDuel.
Okay, Eric, here we are on DraftKings. We got 27,800 remaining, so a little over 5,500 a player. But we can't spend through the moon right out of the gate. Let's save some money and go with a guy who has become the #1 receiver for his team, but is super cheap at $4,000. Can you believe that we can get Juju Smith-Schuster? Okay, you might say, well, it's because he's going up against the Niners. Well, historically, the Niners have not necessarily been the best defensive backfield. And look what Juju did when he didn't have to compete with Rashee Rice. 7 receptions for 130 yards this last week. You could tell that there was if you watch this game, you could tell there was a nice compatibility between Mahomes and Schuster. Hey, he's a possession receiver. This is exactly what you want in DraftKings. High floor. Maybe not a ton of upside with this guy, but $4,000. How can you complain about that, Eric?
Yeah, and I'm going to switch over to running back. At running back at 6,300, let's get Tony Pollard. Sometimes, Michael, I think people think Pollard, they think, oh, he's in a timeshare. But look, he's played 5 games. In 4 of the 5, he has gotten at least 19 touches. That's the definition, folks, of a bell cow running back. He's also a dual threat, which is so important on DraftKings, which is a full PPR. And he's playing Buffalo, who is below average against the rush, absolutely horrible against running backs this year, fantasy-wise, 31st. So Tony Pollard at a reasonable price gives us a nice floor.
Hey, let's go to tight end, Eric. Not going to spend right there towards the top with Kelsey and Kittle, but let's go with the guy who really is been the #1 reception guy at the tight end position. That's Brock Bowers going up against the 31st ranked defense against tight ends at $5,800. Hey, and you might think, well, gosh, with O'Connell, and he's probably not getting as many targets. Yeah, you're right. He only got 10 last week from the 12 that he had the week before. When you sometimes get these quarterbacks that aren't as comfortable, they need guys like Brock Bowers, who's really a special talent coming out of Georgia. This was a great pick by the Raiders. And guess who's not going to be there this week? Devontae Adams. Bodes even more well for Brock Bowers. Really like this pick.
All right. Yeah. Can't believe Rodgers is reunited with Adams in New York. But like you said, I think Bowers is going to be the beneficiary. At wide receiver, let's get another guy that I think Aaron Rodgers has thrown to before. Christian Watson at $4,900. Look, I'm going to be the first to say this has been a disappointing year for Christian Watson because the guy has been hurt for so much of the year. And guess what? He's questionable now. But here's his injury situation. He was injured last week with an ankle injury, but he was able to play through it and played pretty well. You know who else is injured? Jaden Reed with an ankle and Dontavian Wicks with a shoulder. So, look, the good news is Jordan Love is healthy. So that's going to give production to whoever wide receiver that's playing. So if Watson is playing, and I expect that he will, and if one of those 2 guys are out, Wicks or Reed, man, I love this pick at $4,900. If both Reed and Wicks are playing, I like this pick.
Yeah, and he's a stud too. Good job saving us some money. Look, we have $6,800 left. What are we going to do with that? Let's go with our favorite guy every week, Eric, that we have to get in our lineup from the running back position at 60. I thought he was $6,800. Let's see, 65. I'm going to save us $300. Do whatever you want with it. You might need it for that other running back position. It's Chuba Hubbard going up against Washington, who really has been one of the weaker defenses. And part of that's because they're scoring points themselves. Hey, you want a bell cow back. You want a guy who gets involved in the passing game, and gets in the end zone. You want Chuba Hubbard. This guy has been a fantasy dream. Those of you who picked him up on the waiver wire in your leagues, you're loving life. $6,500. Chuba Hubbard, $300 to spare. I'm out.
No, it's awesome. And to reiterate something that Michael told you, you can look at running back and you see Alexander Madison at 5,500. So you can sub him in for Davis. We have the $300 for you, and that will wrap up our lineup. That is assuming Cook, in fact, if this Cook is playing in Buffalo, you'd probably want to bench Davis for Madison. All right, Michael, love the DraftKings lineup. Let's see what we got cooked up for FanDuel. With our 4 core players in, we have almost $7,000 that we can spend. And Michael, I'm going to blow a lot of that $7,000 off my very first pick at running back. It's Kyren Williams. There are no sure things in life, Michael. We got death, taxes, and Kyren Williams playing an important role on this Ram offense. My gosh, look, last 3 games, he has had 26, 23, and 23 touches. He absolutely does everything you want in a fantasy back. He's bell cow, he's goal line, he's scored in every game this year, and he gets involved in the passing game. But what about this week, you say? You cannot ask for a better matchup. No offense to Michael's Las Vegas Raiders.
We deserve it.
The Rams are a home favorite, 6.5-point favorites, a solid 25 implied total. And the Raiders have been absolutely awful against the run. 31st rank rush defense. I know it's a lot of money, Michael, but I'm glad to get Williams in our lineup.
Well, I'm going to have to save some money, and I'm going to take advantage of one of those trades that we kind of alluded to. It's the trade away from the Cleveland Browns of Amari Cooper, leaving Jerry Jeudy as the clear number 1. He's only $5,600. We've got to save some money. So I'm going to take advantage of the trade. Yes, you might say, hey, the Cleveland Browns are garbage. Do you really want anybody on there? Hey, I want a number 1 guy. Got to save some money. And Jerry Jeudy, if he's had some games where he, looked, he was getting a lot of the looks in any event. And Njoku, he's back, but he's a little bit banged up. This is the clear number 1. At some point, the Cleveland Browns are going to have to distribute the ball a little bit more. Yeah, they're going to become a little more run heavy this week, especially if they get their running back tandem back and going. But Jerry Jeudy is going to be able to take advantage of this Amari Cooper trade. So I'm going to get him in there. What do you want to go next?
I think the Nick Chubb return actually will help Jerry Jeudy. It'll help them sustain drives and move the ball down the field. And so I can't believe how you can't get a number 1 wide receiver on FanDuel that cheap very often. All right, I can't get someone that cheap, but I'll get you a number 1 wide receiver, and that is Deontay Johnson. Do apologize. I don't remember how much he was. But we got.
I'm looking for him. I found him.
$7,100. Look, ever since Andy Dalton took over at QB, I really hope Deontay Johnson has been taking Dalton out to dinner because he has flourished. In 3 of the 4 games, he's been simply spectacular. Double digits in targets, and he scored in each of those 3 games. So they play Washington. Besides Seattle and Atlanta, this is tied with Seattle and Atlanta as the highest scoring game of the entire week 7. So to the extent we can get exposure in that game, I think is great. We already got Washington's quarterback, and now we got Carolina's wide receiver.
Hey man, we secretly have stock in Carolina Panthers, so we try and use them every week. You're probably tired of it by now. Well, I'm going to go away from the Carolina Panthers at the flex spot and take advantage of the ability to get a running back who's just been phenomenal this year when he's been healthy. That's your Seattle Seahawks, Kenneth Walker, the third, going up against Atlanta, who really has been One of the weaker rush defenses this year. That's how you can beat Atlanta, is on the ground. And he's going to be a key to this game. Okay, yeah, last couple weeks haven't been fantastic in terms of output, but look at the touches that he gets, and he gets involved in the passing game a lot. And that's exactly what you want. Hey, if the Seahawks are going to stay relevant in the West, which they should be given where they are currently, they've got to take advantage of this athlete, Kenneth Walker III.
As a big Seahawk fan, what you like in Kenneth Walker is the fact that he's matchup proof, right? You might go, well, wait a minute, why weren't they running him in those 2 games? It's because they got behind. Game script was not in their favor, but it wasn't like he went out of the game. They utilized him in the passing game. And again, the 2 games that we want to target, we already talked about Washington and Carolina. The other is Atlanta and Seattle, by far the 2 highest scoring games on the slate. And because of that, guess who I want as my tight end? Let's get Kyle Pitts in that high scoring game. Now, I know that some of you just don't want to hear about Kyle Pitts. You've just been burned by him so many times. And he didn't start off well, but as you've seen Kirk Cousins come alive, I think Pitts is one of the people that benefits. And he's been very solid in the last 2 games. And this week is a dream matchup. Now, we said earlier that Seattle has just an average rush defense, but they're not rush defense, just overall defense. But they're absolutely horrible against tight ends. And 30th ranked against tight ends. And look, they're home favorites, 3 points, and an extremely high implied total of 27. And so I like it.
Got $100 to spare. Again, might need to use that for the Ray Davis position. Eric, I like this lineup. I think we got 2 highly producing lineups. And once again, we went with some Carolina Panthers, and they've proved us right every single week.
Hey, one thing that you can count on with Carolina is their defense sucks. And it's going to at least force their offense to do something. And as long as Andy Dalton is back there, I have confidence that they have the opportunity to do something. All right, Michael, can you believe we're 1/3 of the way through this NFL season?
Man, it's been such a fun year so far. I'm looking forward to the next bit.
All right. Until next time, when we break down week 8, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We'll put up 2 videos we think you'll enjoy.